'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh. So the year has come to an end, and I waited kinda too long to make this video, but here I am anyways with my top 20 films of 2021. It's crazy to think that I've been making top 20 lists for a while now, even way before I started making videos on them. So here we are, and I'm just going to jump right into it because we have 20 films to talk about, and that's quite a lot to get through in one video, but we're going to get to it. So here we go, starting us off at
number 20
is Godzilla Kong. And how could this not be on the list? With how much hype I gave it and how much excitement I had walking into this movie, I was so excited to watch the big monkey versus the big lizard, and boy howdy, did it not disappoint in that aspect. Sure, some of the characters are a little disappointing, and sure, the story isn't the best, but the movie delivered on the thrills, which I was looking for, and it looks great, and it sounds great, and be able to just relish in the fact that these two King Kaijus are back on the big screen once again.
Number 19.
The Matrix Resurrections. Now, this is a divisive film. Some people really enjoyed it, such as myself. Obviously, it's number 19 on this list. Some people really didn't like it. This film takes a lot of big swings in a lot of new directions. I think that the Matrix franchise is a good place to make some of those risky decisions and go in weird different ways, because after the amazing first film, the second and third don't really do a whole heck of a lot. And, well, they do a lot, but they don't do anything well, I should say. That's a bit mean. They are okay, but this one goes in a really neat direction. I think I really like the story here. I really liked where it goes. The action is probably the weakest part, which is a weird thing to say about a franchise that started out being, like, so action-oriented. Give it a try if you haven't. Mixed opinions are fun to talk about, and see which way you fall on this one.
Number 18.
Up next is Luca, which is the highest Disney and highest Pixar film on this list. I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's weird that this is the one that they just kind of dumped on Disney Plus without any, like, special treatment, no theatrical run, nothing. It's just like, here you go, it's free, don't worry about it. This is really nice. It's a really simple story about a boy who meets a mermaid, and is a mermaid, is a sea monster, whatever you want to call it. It's a pleasant movie. People call this kind of like a Studio Ghibli-esque film, and I would agree. It is kind of Ghibli-esque, but it's not like trying to be too much of a Ghibli film. It's kind of very much its own thing. It's very sweet. Yeah, it's Pixar always delivers something at least good, and I think this is one of their better films.
Number 17.
The Last Duel is Ridley Scott's second movie that came out this year. He made 2 movies this year, huh? And this is by far the better one. I really, really liked the tone of this movie. I get that the story centers around something that a lot of people don't want to see. It's a tough thing to talk about, right? And if you don't want to see it because of that, I completely understand. But if you can get past that, albeit very large hurdle, the story is very well made. It's told in 3 different aspects of around this one central issue. We get the unreliable narrator twice, and then we get to see the actual story, how it is, and it's very, very good. It's one of Ridley Scott's best films, I'll say it like that. Obviously, he's made some, like, super high echelon films, and this isn't quite that lofty high, but, you know, we have the boys back. We got Ben Affleck and Matt Damon in the same movie again. It's great to see those two, even though they don't interact that much. Excellent, excellent movie. Check it out if you haven't already. Not a lot of people saw it in theaters, myself included. It didn't show around me, unfortunately, but I saw it as soon as I could, and I was not disappointed.
Number 16.
Is Ghostbusters Afterlife, the newest Ghostbusters film with the franchise that we just won't let lie. This one is such a nice conclusion to what the first 2 movies had, 2016 notwithstanding. That one isn't terrible. A lot of people like to rag on it. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's not the best movie I've ever seen either. This movie does a lot of things well, and it really ends a lot of character stories off very nicely. It's very much its own thing. A lot of people complain about, oh, it's just nostalgia bait, and it does have a lot of nostalgia bait, but it handles it very, very well. As long as it tells its own story, I think it's okay to do a lot of nostalgia bait, which this does. It's very much its own thing. You can't deny that. Yes, there's a lot of callbacks, a lot of references, but they're handled very well, and it all works so well within the world that they're crafting here.
Number 15.
Werewolves Within, the best video game movie of the year, and one of the best video game movies of all time. Not that that's a big list to try to compete with, but Werewolves is a very, very fun, it's a monster movie. It's like The Thing, where it's like we gotta find out who the killer is, and one of them is a big monster. We get to hear a lot about the characters, and it's a big mystery. I think watching it a second time, because I've only seen it once so far, a second time might be just as good, even though I know the twist now. Seeing like the hints and whatnot spread throughout, I think is gonna be really, really fun. Werewolves Within is another movie that flew under a lot of people's radar, and you should definitely check it out if you haven't already. And you can get that video game movie stigma out of here, because it's based on a video game that like nobody played anyway. So just watch it like it's a whole new thing.
Number 14.
Is The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. This film, I don't remember if it came out on Valentine's Day. I remember watching it on Valentine's Day. This is a very early film from this year that I immediately watched, and I knew that this was going to be on my top 20 list because of how much it blew me away, how much I actually liked it. Because I walked in, I really, really liked Catherine Newton, and I expected to just think it was fine. This cute little, like, romance, whatever. But it's like a time loop film, and those are really fun. It works really well on every level that it tries to do. So it works as a romance, it works as a time loop, and it works as a comedy. Like, there's so many things it does right. It blew me away with how well it does everything, how well it juggles all its elements, and you should absolutely watch it. It's on Amazon Prime. I doubt I'll ever get a physical, unfortunately, but it does exist, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of good things to say about it. Go check it out.
Number 13.
The Sparks Brothers, directed by my favorite director, Edgar Wright. His take on a documentary and his idea of, well, I really want to see this story be told. Who better than me to tell the story? Great reason to make a documentary. And this is a band, Sparks, that I never heard of before this. After watching it, I really wanted to dive into a lot of their music. They have a lot of really good music. They have a lot of music. They've been doing this for 50 years. There's a ton of songs to listen to. So definitely check out this documentary, even if you don't really know who these guys are, because it kind of wants you to watch this if you don't know who Sparks is. And dive in, check out these guys, see their story. It's fantastic.
Number 12.
Quiet Place Part 2. Now, this is the first point where I want to bring this up. This list is based on 2021 full theatrical release in the United States. Yes, this film did premiere in 2020 at some events and stuff, so some people might consider this a 2020 film. Like, if you check on Letterboxd, it says 2020. I don't stand by that. This film didn't get a full release until 2021. I count it here. I love this movie. I really wanted to talk about it here. It's a sequel to one of the best horror movies of recent times. John Krasinski directs this, and he's fantastic, and it's just great. Like, I really enjoy this. We have a new horror franchise I'm looking forward to. I really look forward to part 3. Whenever that happens, whether that's a couple years or a ways away, everyone's great in this. Great scares. Like, it's just good. It's just a really good movie.
Number 11.
Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, The Mugen Train. This is the other example of a 2020 movie that's wide release in America in 2021. That's how it's able to be here, and it's my list, so I make the rules. I love Demon Slayer. It's one of my favorite anime going. This movie did not disappoint. I don't think it's as good per se as the first season, but also the first season has a lot more wiggle room to do stuff with the characters and whatnot. With a 2-hour film, you can't really make every character the star, and it definitely has to put some of them off the wayside, but the characters that they picked to mainstay are amazing. Like, Rengoku is such a great character in this, and he's like one of the main characters that we didn't really see a lot in season 1, and he's so good. The music is obviously amazing. The action is so good. The mix of CG and 2D animation might be a bit jarring, but you get used to it pretty fast, and the movie overall is just fantastic. Don't watch it if you haven't seen the first season of the show, because it'll just straight up spoil, because it's just a continuation more than it is a standalone movie. If you haven't seen this yet, get on the Demon Slayer train, Mugen train, and because the new season's happening right now. And yes, this is going to be one of the biggest things going. It's the biggest film of 2020. That's insane. Mugen Train, absolutely fantastic.
Number 10.
So, starting us off with the top 10, we have Shang-Chi in The Legend of the Ten Rings. MCU's back at it. I wasn't a huge fan of Black Widow, and I wasn't a big fan of the TV output before Shang-Chi. So I was really, like, down and out before going to see Shang-Chi. I was like, do we really need, like, more MCU right now? Like, we took a year off, not intentionally in 2020, but it was like kind of nice to be like, after Endgame, just take a breather. Like, we all like stop for a second and watch some other things. Black Widow comes out and I'm like, And the TV stuff, while I did enjoy a good bit of WandaVision, there's a twist in that I didn't really like at all. And then Falcon the Winter Soldier is just okay in my opinion. So going into this, I was like hesitant. It really blew me away. I was very well surprised. The action is some of the best that the MCU has to offer. Creativity is amazing. This character that they've created, well, didn't create, they took from the comics, but now put in the MCU is great. I loved it. It's one of the best in the MCU.
Number 9.
Is In the Heights. There were a lot of musicals this year, and this was my favorite, made by the play of the same name by Lin-Manuel Miranda. This is one of the only films I saw twice this year. Very uplifting, a lot of energy here. Some great songs that still get stuck into my head. 26,000 was in my Spotify like top 10, I think. I love that song a lot. I listen to it a lot. Just a great musical. Some great numbers, some great acting. Overall, fantastic.
Number 8.
No Time to Die. Number 7, that would have been kind of funny, but I didn't make this list just to put them in a specific order. No Time to Die is the final Daniel Craig Bond film, and what a way to go. One of my favorite Bond movies. Daniel Craig already has the title of my favorite Bond movie with Casino Royale, and this film is not far behind that and Skyfall, which I also really enjoy. This film does so many things with this character. It takes him on such a wild ride. It's a very long Bond film. It's a pretty long movie overall. But I think it's the longest Bond film. It's got a great opening number. Billie Eilish did a great job with that. And I remember sitting in the theater and hearing that opening number and just getting a little welted up because I was like, we're finally here. I finally am watching this Bond movie because I heard that song like 2 years at least prior and being like, wow, I can't wait to see that. And then it got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back because it was supposed to come out in like April of 2020. And it was one of the first things to get pushed back, and it was just long waits, and I finally have seen it, and it's great. It's one of the best Bond films. If you're a Bond fan, you've seen this already. If you're not, start with Casino Royale and just kind of work your way through the 5, and this is a great conclusion to Daniel Craig's tenure as Bond.
Number 7
is The Green Knight. We don't get a lot of fantasy films anymore, and especially don't get a lot of good fantasy films anymore. But this film is a great fantasy film. The journey of a single man who has to fulfill a promise he made because he lost a bet. I'm oversimplifying this like crazy. And he just meets a lot of interesting characters and goes through a lot of interesting locales. The twists and turns are amazing. The magical elements, the fantasy elements, absolutely astounding. Just the visual look of this movie looks really good. I saw it in probably the worst way. I was house sitting and I watched it on a DVD version, and that was probably like the worst way to see this movie. It was on a small screen on a DVD, and it still blew me away in how it looked. So I can't wait to see it on 4K on my TV at home. Yes, Green Knight is fantastic. Another one that was really anticipated last year, got pushed for this year, and really fulfilled its promise.
Number 6.
Dune, or the first half of the Dune story. I don't know a lot about Dune. I knew walking in that there was a thing called spice and there were some big worms. And that's what I got. I got spice and big worms and a lot more. One of the best movies of the year. I am fully on the Denis Villeneuve train. I wasn't for a while. I totally am now. I anxiously look forward to part 2. I don't know if they were planning part 2 for a long time and they were trying to make us go because they weren't announcing it, and if this would have just ended here, that would have been a major disappointment. We're getting Dune 2, and I can't wait to see that as well.
Number 5.
Our top 5 is filled with a certain genre that you guys may yell at me for, but it starts off here with Zack Snyder's Justice League. A testament to fan outcry, and if we get loud enough, sometimes studios will hear us. Release the Snyder Cut has been a thing since 2016, and it took us 5 years. It took us half a decade for this film to release, to see the light of day. Dropped on HBO Max. It all worked out super well, and I'm so glad. It got a physical. That's great as well, because you don't have to have HBO Max now to see it. Just a stellar movie. It's very long. If you need to watch it in chunks, the film is broken up in chunks for you to do that, but it's so good. And please watch it if you haven't already. It's the best version of a lot of these characters.
Number 4.
SpiderMan No Way Home, the biggest film of the year. What a film to be the biggest film of the year. Just a ton of fun. Having all these villains back from old movies, that's a great thing to do. But, The villains were good in the Holland movies already. I mean, you can't really beat some of the classic ones that we've had in Spider-Man past, and they do a great job with those characters. Tom Holland really becomes Spider-Man in this. He's not like an Iron Man Jr., and that's the biggest complaint about Holland a lot of people have. He's truly Spider-Man in this movie. Spider-Man is having a renaissance right now, and I'm happy to be enjoying it.
Number 3.
Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time. I talked about this a while back when I talked about Evangelion as a whole. What a movie. This is a big film as well, and a dense film at that. There's a lot going on here, because it doesn't only just end the rebuild movies, it also ends the entire franchise and everything that this thing is built up to. Evangelion is a meaningful piece of art that ends in a very spectacular way. Like, this film has everything. It has some insane action. It has fantastic characters. It has beautiful music. It has amazing storytelling. Like, it just all wraps up and it all works somehow. Like, it takes a million moving parts and it just kind of like collectively just like makes it. And it, I don't know how to explain it, but it just works. And if there's a tough one to recommend, because if you haven't seen the entire franchise, it won't work as well. Like, don't just watch this one. At least watch the rebuild movies first. They're all on Prime, at least they are right now, I believe. So check those out. I hope this gets a physical at some point. Like, I would love just all 4 of them. And yeah, I look forward to seeing this again, but it's a dense movie that really, at the very end, tugged on my heartstrings a lot.
Number 2.
And the biggest and best comic book film of the year, The Suicide Squad. This was a very much anticipated film for me. I walked in with huge excitement, and I walked out with bigger excitement. Because I just knew that I watched one of the best of the year, at the time, the best of the year. And just some insanely well-directed action. The characters are just phenomenal. Even the ones that are, like, not on screen a lot, they're still great. They're super memorable. They all, like, have something about them that is like, oh yeah, like, that guy did this, or they did that, even if they're on screen for a very short amount of time. Like, the first character to die in this is still very memorable. My boy King Shark is great. I love him. I'm so glad they did him well. I love this movie. I've seen it twice. Another one that I've seen a couple times this year. I adore this movie. Let James Gunn do whatever he wants with the DC characters. We're getting Peacemaker, which isn't the character I thought we would be getting a spin-off for, but we are, and I'm excited to see that as well.
Number 1.
And finally, my favorite film of the year, Last Night in Soho, also by Edgar Wright. You didn't think I was going to miss out on my other Edgar Wright film of the year, did you? This film did everything it wanted to do in spades. Like, scariest movie that Edgar Wright has done since, well, I said since Shaun of the Dead, but Some Part of the World Ends is pretty spooky, but absolutely nails the horror elements, nails the character aspects. I brought some friends to this movie, and they had never heard of this movie. They went on my recommendation alone. I hadn't seen it yet. It could have ended up bad. I highly doubted it, being my guy Edgar Wright made it, and I love everything he's made. But I wasn't going to walk out with blind, like, love if it wasn't the best. I want to, like, make an argument here before this argument even gets made against me. Yes, it's my favorite director for a reason, because he keeps making #1 movies for me. If I just had blind love, it would be that Sparks Brothers would be #2, but it's not. So I already get a little defensive, but I love Edgar Wright, and I love a lot of his movies. Last Night in Soho is one of those movies I love because it does everything so well. And like I was saying, I took my friends to it. They had no idea what was going on. And the first 10 minutes or so are like super normal, and then once it gets into the supernatural is when it gets crazy, and they really didn't expect it, and it really took all of us by surprise. By the end, my hands were shaking. Just the quality of this movie, and I look forward very much to seeing it again, because much like Baby Driver and Hot Fuzz and any other movie he's made before, it's better on a rewatch. Every movie I've seen by him, I liked it better on round 2. That's my list. Did you see Last Night in Soho? If not, why not? Watch that. What were your favorite movies this year? And yeah, that'll about do it for me. Thank you so very much for watching. And as always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point.